All right, so we're live, so I need to check it on here. It's Earth Day today.
Happy Earth Day.
50-year anniversary.
Happy Earth Day to you guys as well.
Yeah. I was at Armstrong the first Earth Day, and there were 4 hippies that stood by the fountain and celebrated. That was Earth Day.
That sounds awesome.
2 of those hippies are still around town, Mickey Yeomans and Billy Strong. 3, me.
I was wondering, I bet, yeah, I was thinking Billy was probably there.
Absolutely.
He's a good guy.
Yep.
Brittany, I'm trying to tag you on here. There you go.
Thank you.
And me.
The last many years of Earth Day festivities, I haven't been able to do anything. So I've been working.
Well,
just like this Earth Day.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I guess we can get started whenever you guys are ready. I'm show is yours, Tom.
Okay. So we're past the minute where we just kind of mess around. We're actually in it now.
We're in it. We're in it to win it.
Excellent. All right. We are in it to win it. That should be our motto, Clinton.
I'll consider that. That's not a bad one.
To win it. There you go.
I just want to make sure.
You're a political poet and didn't know it.
In it to win it. It's short. It's tweetable.
That's
right. Everything you want.
Hashtag. Yeah. So speaking of hashtags, can we digress just for a minute?
Yeah, why not?
On NPR today, there was a story about the maintenance man at the Cowboy Museum in the West somewhere. He's the maintenance man, but now he's been made director of social media. And did you see that? Hear that?
I saw the headlines. I didn't look at the story, but I saw the headlines.
He's so wonderfully. He's like the Barney Fife of social media. He calls it the Facebook, the Instagram, etc. And he writes out the word hashtag. He says hashtag, writes it out. But listen to this. He's collected hundreds of thousands of new followers and has become like a social media sensation. And he's just got this wonderful sort of, I'm really just the head of security and maintenance, but now I'm guy. But it was a great story.
But that reminds me of the I'll send you the article or the tweet this guy has, but the guy behind the Steakums Twitter account. It's really great. He's like the 28-year-old son of the owner of frozen meat product, and his tweets have been really intense and very poignant and like you're like, wait, frozen steaks,
right?
High-minded philosophy, okay, and somehow he's got a lot of followers now. But let's get this show on the road.
You can't talk about Steakums anymore?
No, we're cut off. I'm cutting you off.
Now, Steakums are those really thin, flat little things, look like roofing shingles, right?
I don't actually even know what a Steakums is.
I do know this. They're like little flat things. They look like roofing shingles, and you put them on the grill, and they begin to sizzle up a little bit, then you chop up and put them into like a bun, and it's like for a Philly steak sandwich.
How is that connect? How can you call that a steak?
I think a cow was involved early on.
Yeah. Yeah. But no longer.
No longer. There you go. All right. Well, Clinton, good to see you. Brittany, good to see you.
Hey.
Look forward to some time together here in this particular way, this new way. And just to say that, Clinton, I'm pleased to be doing this because, as you know, I am a proud and public supporter of you personally. And certainly the request that you're on to the second Chatham County Commissioner. And I'm looking forward to a lively conversation between us. And hopefully the folks that are tuning in here can ask some questions and get involved in the conversation. And just to say, I'm going to hold my questions that have to do with your platform kind of to the end of the time that we really talk with each other.
Okay.
Then that way people can jump in with questions about that then. So that'll be when we transition to hopefully get this to be a bigger conversation than just a conversation between you and I. Does that
Cool.
make sense to you?
I can comprehend.
Okay, very excellent. Also, we're pleased to have Brittany Curry here with us. And Brittany, you're going to help people deepen their learning. And if you don't mind, would you explain kind of your role tonight and what we can expect from you?
I will. Thank you very much. I am going to be playing the role of listener. And as I'm listening to the conversation, I'm going to be capturing the main points of Clinton's story. And at the end, I'll give a 2 to 3 minute summary, verbal summary, and just hit back on the high notes of what Clinton said. I will be posting high quality images of the graphics. As you can see, you're not gonna be able to see the details from this angle right here, but stay tuned after I'll have the graphics uploaded, hopefully within an hour after our call is finished. So thanks for inviting me to be a part of the call, and I invite anybody who is interested in working with the graphic facilitator to get in touch with me. So I'm gonna get to it.
All right. Thank you, Brittany. Very kind. All right. Well, rhymes with Westminster. Is that right?
It is, if you pronounce it correctly.
Thank you. All right. That's the first step. And you're interested in the 2nd District County Commission seat, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. Good. Why don't we start off with some simple but important civics? And my first question would be, if I want to vote for you, where do I need to live and what do I need to do to vote?
So I could explain where the district is, but it's kind of complicated. But I would include. I'll kind of go through some of the neighborhood associations that are in the area, at least some of the ones maybe on the outside, on the border. So it goes from the Thomas Square district, which is where I'm at actually right now, all the way over to the Twickenham neighborhood. It kind of captures everything in between there. So Baldwin Park, Live Oak, Midtown. What's the one that starts with the G? Ooh, Gordonston. That's it. And then it goes down. You gather Parkside right behind Baldwin Park, and then also you've got Edgemere, Thackville, part of Blueberry Hill, Magnolia Park, kind of down there. So it's kind of an L. You know, you've got sort of the top of everything above Victory, and then down on Skidaway. There's a map on my website at clintonforcounty.com, and I would encourage you to look that up because that's actually where it's at.
All right. And what about Ardsley Park?
Ardsley Park is not in there.
Not in the district. Okay. All right. So you're east of Ardsley on Waters.
Correct. Yeah, it's everything up between Waters Avenue and Skidaway.
Got it. Okay, great. And then just in terms of scheduling and kind of doing the right paperwork, what do people need to make sure they've done or do to make sure they can vote in the upcoming election? When's the upcoming election? What's the kind of because things are different now. So
things are different now.
Bring the speed on that. It's different. How is it different? What do people need to be thinking about?
That could have been the name of this whole talk. Things are different now. So basically what they did is there was going to be the presidential primary last month. There was going to be the sort of local state primaries for these local seats in May, and they just sort of squished it all together and moved it to June 9th. So now June 9th is when you vote. June 9th is the latest that you can vote, I guess. The Secretary of State pushed out absentee ballot requests to every active voter household in Georgia. And so that is simply a request for an absentee ballot. It's not actually a ballot. So those have been sent out. There have been, I think, over 20,000 ballots that have been, or ballot requests that have been received by the Secretary of State's election office, simply from Chatham County. So that's a lot of great work, but we really need to make sure those numbers are getting higher. If you do not feel comfortable voting by mail, you can vote in person on June 9th. That's kind of the point, is to try to get as many people away from the polls so those who actually really need to use the polls can do so safely.
All righty. Thank you. And so roughly how many people live in your district? How many registered voters? How many people vote? I mean, let's talk about the district just a little bit more. We'll get into it later as well. But I mean, again, give me kind of that demographic, if you would.
Yeah, so District 2, there's a lot of interesting features around District 2. It's the smallest district of the county. What they do, I think what the intent of a district is to gather about 20,000 active voters, which roughly calculates to about 36,000 people per district. So because we've got 36,000 people and it's the smallest district, it is by, mathematically it is the most dense, which is kind of interesting. There are fluctuating voter records in terms of how many people have been voting in the last elections. It goes up and down a lot based on which election you look at. The last election that is most similar to the one coming up on June 9th had about 2,700 people that voted in it. But it's a different world, and I think it's tough to compare that election, or really any election, and the ones that we're going to be having in the next couple of months.
Right. So just so I can be clear, you said 2,700 people voted.
2,700 people voted in the when was that? 2015, the last presidential primary.
Okay, so it's 16. Yeah, all right. So point here is your vote counts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Your vote means a lot, especially in this primary, and that's why it's crucial that we get folks out to vote, and we get folks out, to fill out their absentee voter application. Your vote counts critically, especially in these local elections. You've got a lot of decisions to be making for a bunch of judicial seats, coroner, tax commissioner, future president of the United States, and me.
Right. And then, there's always the thing about all politics is local. So your point, some of these races aren't kind of the sexy races, but they're certainly the races that in some ways affect people here in a little bit way than some of the big ticket sexy races. So.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of been my mantra for years is, focus on your local politics because they're actually building the sidewalks.
Fair enough. Well, let me ask, let's spend a minute if we could. Let's talk a little bit about, how did we meet each other? I'd be interested in your memory of how we met each other. And then I'll kind of vaguely remember how that worked. And then if it's okay, let's talk a little bit about, if you would, a couple of capers we pulled off through the years together, just to kind of do that a bit.
Well, I recall seeing you at the Sentient Bean having meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting with a whole bunch of random people, and just thinking to myself, what the hell is that guy doing? There seems to be no agenda that he has, because if there was, he'd be meeting with one certain type of person, but he's meeting with everybody, young people, old people, all over the place. I mean, not all over the place, actually, at the Bean. And I think that's what sparked my curiosity. I was like, what is this person? What's that deal? And,
right.
And then I think we ended up, working on a couple projects together.
Right. The way I would remember that is I was in a big pinch when I was doing the Savannah Rocks project to acknowledge the 50th anniversary of the Beatles playing the Ed Sullivan Show in '64. I was in a bad pinch there, and somebody mentioned your name as somebody that could do the core and just sort of manage physical space in a very quick and very effective way. And I think we went and had a drink at American Legion, and I think you could see fear in my eyes. And, you were quick to say yes. I remember you talking about taking 45s and turning them into ashtrays, 45 records, and turning them into ashtrays. And I thought, okay, well, if he could do that, he could probably do anything and everything else. So, kind of a sell. So that would have been 2014 is when we met each other.
Yes, it would have.
Time passes. And then the other thing we've done together is some emergent Savannah work. And you were mentioning briefly your when you were on stage with Brooke Stillwell, and what that was all about.
I remember being on stage with Brooke Stillwell, who was the previous city attorney. Mm-hmm. I think Brooks was also the youngest elected city alderman ever.
He was 26 when he was elected originally. That's correct.
Yeah, a while ago. And Brooks cracks me up. And we were talking about a whole bunch of different stuff. And there was a piano involved, and there was a sing-along involved. And it was this really interesting juxtaposition between, like, Brooke Stillwell, like a city attorney, I'm Brooke Stillwell, and this, like, music and which again, it makes these topics easier and more digestible for lots of us to understand,
Yeah.
Many people don't like really boring meetings, but you can make them exciting.
And I remember you asked you interviewed Brooks, and you interviewed him by asking the questions musically, which was great. And so you would ask the question in a song, and he would respond as Brooks. And then I also remember you had written a song called Savannah Baby, and had written
Oh yeah.
and we had song sheets, so the entire 100 people in the room sang Savannah Baby that you had written. So yeah, it was a great way to start Emergent back in the day. And then we've eaten a lot of lunch together through the years, and just had a chance to kind of feedback, in my opinion, I hope, kind of feedback off of each other, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, about ways
Yes.
that kind of thing. Yeah. Listen, I hope you'd be willing to talk a bit about where you're from, where you grew up, what growing up was like for you, and kind of maybe what you feel like you came to Savannah with. What was it about your life
That's it.
before you got here that has made you kind of who you are? Do you mind being that personal?
I love that question. What did you come to Savannah with? That's interesting. I'll answer that now, but I'm also going to be thinking about that, probably later tonight, because that's just far too interesting to just forget after this. So I grew up in Alaska. I grew up in Homer, Alaska. I was born in Bend, Oregon in 1990, and my parents moved me up in a truck to Alaska. My parents at the time were crab fishermen. They both had grown up in Tucson, Arizona, and then sort of traveled the world separately. They didn't know each other, traveled the world separately, and then met back in Seward, Alaska on a crab boat. And not long after, I came into the world and started doing super cool stuff, I guess. So up in Alaska, I grew up there and till I was about 18, sort of started migrating this way towards Savannah. I had a really wonderful upbringing, and the relationship I've got with my family and my parents is just one of the it is the most important and strongest thing in my life, and it's been really interesting just sort of watching myself and our relationship grow with them. Right now, we're all kind of separated because we were all my mom was taking care of my grandma in Tucson, and then coronavirus hit, so we're all kind of stuck in place right now. So my dad's up in Alaska, and he's currently a refrigeration mechanic. My mom is in Tucson, Arizona, taking care of my grandma, and my sister is in Bellingham, Washington. Honestly, I don't even know what she's doing, but she's having a good time, and she's an amazing young person. So
now, when you
that's
say
my parents.
young, let's define young here. How
She's 17 months younger than I am.
Okay.
So I don't know how old she is. She's like 5 or 16 or 39. I don't know. So growing up was awesome, and I think the main part, sort of the one of the more interesting things about growing up for me is that I grew up working on a fishing boat on the Aleutian Islands. And so not long after I was born, a couple of years later, my dad purchased a salmon boat called the FV Restless. And the family, our whole family worked out on the boat every summer for like 9 years in a row of my life, between the ages of like 9 and 18. And I think actually a little bit longer than that. And so on the boat, we're talking about like a 40-foot fishing vessel in Alaska that's fishing for salmon. It's not very big, and you're on the water. We were out there for probably 2.5 to 3 months at a time, with maybe coming to land for maybe 5 or 6 times, about 5 or 6 times. So growing up on the boat, you learn by trial by fire. You learn to be self-sufficient. You learn to entertain yourself. I learned some tremendous problem-solving skills, because there are no solutions except for the solution that you come up with. There's, you can't go to Walmart, you can't go to Napa, you can't go to Home Depot to find something. You have to use the materials that are on the boat in new and different ways to solve any problem that comes up. You also got to be really prepared. So it taught me a lot about being prepared, thinking critically about safety all the time, and making sure that I was able to problem solve. Also, on a boat that small with your family for 3 months, you learn some cooperation skills so that you don't kill each other, which would have been bad. And we all survived. We're all still alive. So I can tell you that we did all learn our cooperation skills, but there were some scary moments there for sure.
Well, it does sound like what is sometimes called in the American South good home training.
Yes, it was tough love. I would say it like that. It was tough love.
And what kind of student were you? We don't have to belabor it. I'm just curious. I've got my own
Oh,
suspicions.
I was like, that I was a B student that was really involved. I was in, I spent a lot of time in theater, did a lot of stuff with the student council. I think I was student council president for like a year or so, which was kind of fun. I was on the youth advisory committee, which is kind of cool. So the youth advisory committee was the youth board for the Homer Foundation, which was a very high functioning philanthropy organization that did a ton of work in our community. And we, as the youth advisory committee, we had matching grant. So whatever we raised was matched by the foundation, and then we would go out into the community and do surveys of our peers and saying, what do we want? Do we want more art? Do we want more sports? And then we would facilitate grants based on that information that we had collected. And so, we were doing this work when I was 14, 15, 16, and I stuck with that for about 4 or 5 years.
So really, since you were a relatively young teenager, you've been figuring out how groups of people work and don't work together, and how to sort of move the ball forward in that context. And not a lot of people start there when they're 15. So although you're young, and I'll keep bringing this back to that, although you're young, you've been doing that type of thing for half your life.
Yeah.
And then, why Savannah? And how'd you get here? And what did you find when you got here?
So, I definitely came to Savannah, sort of by accident. I wanted to go, I was interested in going to the Savannah College of Art and Design to study computer animation. I wanted to tell stories and, be in a collaborative artistic environment. And, it was honestly really quite random. I didn't know much about Savannah. I think I read the book, about 4 months before I came here. I didn't actually even realize that Savannah was in Georgia, or that Savannah was in the South, until 2 months before I came here. I was really focused on school, my graduating year, and it honestly just took up all the time I had to think about college. So I just came, came to Savannah sight unseen, and it took a process. It definitely took a good minimum 2-3 years to sort of remove myself from the SCAD bubble that I was in. And there was a clear series of phases that I've gone through, sort of, becoming a Savannian, and trying to figure out what that means, and understanding, what does that mean to not just be in this place, but to live in this place. And it's taken, it's been I think what's interesting is that it's my decision that I'm here. I wasn't it's my decision that I'm here, and I've been making that decision every day to stay here, to commit to the city, to help it grow, and to help it grow me.
Right. Well, that's there are two sides of that. You want to help this community, grow, and that it'll help you grow personally.
Yes, tremendously.
So you're here by choice?
Every day.
Yeah. And
and I think that's something that we wake up and it's just sort of I'm so glad that I get to make the choice every day to live here. And definitely some days it's harder than others. But I wake up every day and it's just this is such an incredible place to live, and it's frustrating as all heck, and it's beautiful beyond, any limits. And the people are incredible. And also some of the people are really frustrating as well. But it's just a sort of magical mixture that I've just been, really just enchanted by. And I'm in it.
Right.
I'm in it. I own a business now. I've got, I'm here.
I hear you. So, in some way, you have these wonderful fresh eyes that, I grew up here and stayed. And so I see Savannah in a certain way. I see it in this very familiar way. and sometimes that makes us a little bit lazy or a little bit, we can't really see what's in front of us. But I mean, you came here with these very bright, fresh eyes and have been sort of decoding this community for the past 10 years now. Is that about?
Yeah, almost 11 now.
Yeah, 11, been kind of decoding this community for the past 11 years. And in that process, as you say, you found your way kind of into this community in several different ways.
Yes.
Why don't we talk a little bit about, if we could, you want to kind of help me with, different ways that you have gotten involved in this community. Why don't we start with Starlandia first, if that's okay, just because that's where you physically are right now. Let's talk about your business, I think. No?
I'm trying to find a Starlandia sign.
All right.
Shit, I don't think I got one. Well, yeah. So about this is one of the biggest things I've done in my life. Second to actually, I think, running this campaign. But about 5 years ago, on April 1st, 2015, it was weird because it's April Day, I signed a lease to 2438 Bull Street and proceeded to open up Starlandia Supply. So Starlandia is pretty cool. I'm extremely proud of it. And I feel like it's this golden egg that I was handed by the creator, and I just kind of have to do my best to keep it alive. And thankfully, it's a very strong golden egg, which has been helpful. So at Starlandia, oh, hey, Janine's watching this. At Starlandia, we take in old art supplies, we process them, and then we sell those along with a large selection of high quality new supplies as well. So at Starlandia, you get a lot of different benefits. One, we've got consistent high quality new supplies. You can come in any day of the week and be pretty damn sure that we've got the supplies you need. We also have, because of the reclaimed nature of it, the cheapest, most affordable supplies anywhere in North America, because we're not selling them for the first time. They've already been traded in. So we were able to divide the value between, many of the customers that we've got here. And Starlandia works. It, if I may say so, kicks ass. I mean, well, it did until about 4 weeks ago, and then everything got weird. But it's an amazing place. I've got a variety. I've got we've got 3 to 5 employees at any given time. We support a variety of nonprofits in town. We're involved with the community. This business, what I love about it is the diversity of folks that come in. We definitely have a lot of SCAD students for sure. And we also have people from all over the place. Knitting clubs in Richmond Hill, a quilt club over on Tybee Island, grandmas up on Hilton Head, folks all throughout our neighborhood that need tape, screwdrivers, super glue. We do have all the, classical art supplies, but we also have some basic stuff that helps a community just glue themselves together, if I may.
Yep. And
Janine, who's watching this right now, she's one of our fantastic customers. And I think that's the other part, is I just get to meet some really cool people and help them make awesome things.
Right. Absolutely. And it sounds like because it's reclaimed as well as new, I mean, there's some shoppers I would imagine come in because they know they can buy something about as cheaply as they can get anywhere in North America.
Yes.
And there are other shoppers that are coming in where price isn't such an issue, and they know just big variety. But really, really huge spectrum of people probably coming in because big spectrum of products.
Absolutely. There's really no other store like this, even really fairly similar to it, that we've been able to find in America.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your paid work. I mean, that's how you pay your bills.
It is. And it also, I mean, just finally to add, it gives me a tremendous amount of flexibility, because in the last couple of years, Starlandia is really just it works. It's running on its own. We will be definitely this pandemic and the closures right now is of concern, but I don't think the store is going anywhere, and I'm extremely confident that we'll be able to bounce right back. And we've been able to do pretty well over the last couple of weeks, and I think we'll do really well later.
Your point there, I think, is you've got capable staff, small staff, capable staff, and you can manage your own schedule. So you can be where you need to be, when you need to be, and your business runs with you and without you. Is that a fair statement?
The first person I talked to about running in an election like this was my store manager, because if they don't feel like they have the ability to run this place without me being there 24 hours a day, then there was no chance that I was gonna, let it slide or anything like that. And so we had a really good conversation, and I feel extremely confident, both in my ability to kind of step away a little bit, but also be really involved, and the ability for the store to continue, serving all of our customers and being just, the amazing Starlandia store that it is.
Say the obvious. You have to figure out all these systems. I mean,
You kind of
you've had
froze.
to learn
Wait,
how to
I think you
open a
kind of
business.
froze. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. I mean, to sort of state the obvious, I mean, you started this from the ground up, so you've had to figure out all the systems. You've had to make mistakes and back up and figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
You've had to figure out budgets. You've had to do planning. You've had to interact with vendors, insurance people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to your point, it's not something you've ever done before, so you've had to learn it as you go, step at a time. And in some ways, that's what it would be like to be on the Chatham County Commission.
I feel like some of the main strong traits that I've learned at Starlandia are what I'm taking with me to the county commission. One of those is cooperation, enthusiasm, and also not being afraid to try something new and scrap it if it doesn't work. Like that. We do that all the time at Starlandia, and that's really the only way we've been able to learn is we try something out, it works or it doesn't, and we do it again. And if it doesn't work, it's gone. And if it does, then we start implementing it everywhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I call it iterative design.
Say it again.
Iterative design. Sort of a lot of slow steps to figure out, the best way to do it.
Let's shift a little bit to your civic life. I mean, would you mind talking about some of the ways that you have been involved in Savannah civically and on board, that kind of thing?
Tom, there are a few things I would mind talking with you about, or not. I think I got my sentence right. Yeah. So going back to when I was even a teenager, I realized that I don't mind a long meeting, and I pay attention, and I like doing that stuff. I don't know why. Some people like carrot cake and some people like chocolate cake. I like being involved in a type of civic discussion that we call meetings today. And so what that's done is it's led me to be on a bunch of different boards here in Savannah. And what boards do, what I've learned about boards is that it's really where people, policy, and politics all kind of comes together. There's a certain professionalism, there's a certain responsibility, there's a certain level of cooperation that all boards kind of need to maintain in order to move forward. I've been on great boards, I've been on not so great boards, and they've really given me an incredible tool set for getting shit done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah. Sorry.
Name two or three so people can kind of get a sense of kind of how you already fit into Savannah.
Yeah. So I'm actually not on as many boards as I was, which is kind of leading up to running for the seat. I've sort of been slowly resigning from a couple different boards here and there to sort of give myself the time to be able to run. But the three boards that I've been successful in and had a lot of fun working on are the Creative Coast, the Thomas Square Neighborhood, and Chatham Area Transit. I have been president of two of those. I've been a board member of all three. I've been extremely active in every board that I've ever been on. I'm not a board member that goes on a board and doesn't say anything. I like to talk and I like to listen.
Remind me how old you are again?
29.
Uh-huh.
I'll be 30 in July.
That makes me feel better.
That makes me feel better too.
are there particular things you feel like you learned on each of these boards, or I mean, are there some little takeaways that you pulled out, or just sort of?
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know if this. Yeah. One thing I've learned is that if you show up on time, if you answer emails within 24 hours, and you're nice, you can do almost anything. You can do almost anything if you follow those three things. If you just show up on time, and none of these actually take any actual like talent or smart thinking. They just take some dedication and some responsibility. But show up, answer, communicate, and be a fairly friendly person. That doesn't mean you shouldn't disagree. Hopefully, there's lots of disagreement going on in a board. But that, doesn't mean you should be disagreeable. I'd also say the boards that I found to be most disagreeable, but in a friendly, trustworthy way, were the boards that we were able to get the most stuff done. Boards that were too focused on being friendly with each other and not being able to get anything done or hurt any feelings were not as effective, I've found, as boards that have a little bit of disagreement, but there's a trust that it's okay, it's valued, you're valued, and we're gonna get into we're gonna make a decision for one reason or another.
Okay.
But so yeah, those are the three boards.
Okay.
I can kind of talk about them more in detail if you'd like.
We might come back. I mean, we're almost a half hour in, and I want to be
Oh my God.
of our time, if I may. And again, just to remind people why we're doing this because you are running for the 2nd District Chatham County Commission position. And this is an opportunity for people that maybe don't know you to get to know you as a person a little bit better, and which I hope is important to people. And then also, as we get a little bit further into this, there'll be some ways we can invite people to ask questions and learn about what you're thinking about and where you kind of see how you see yourself playing a good role. And then the other thing, maybe there might be opportunities for us to talk to our viewing audience about ways that they can help you in this campaign if they feel compelled to do that. So, I mean, still got a few things to talk about, and then we'll get to hopefully some audience questions and that sort of thing. Let's go back and talk about the district a little bit, if we could. Would it be possible to just name the neighborhoods? You have some way just to say to me, here are the neighborhoods that represent that.
I do. I've got a list somewhere. I mean, I hate to read a list on Facebook Live, but
I know if I lived in one of the neighborhoods and heard my neighborhood mentioned,
yeah,
I'd be glad that you said again. It helps. Where do I live, and just of interest to me. I think a lot of people, even people that are reminded, I mean, if you ask them who's their county commissioner,
that's maybe we can talk about that. So yeah, let me read where this is. If I read where, well, I can do this. All right. So portions of the historic district, not all the historic district, but from Price Street west. If you're in the historic district and you live on Price Street or west, you're in District 2. Basically, all of Victorian District, Dixon Park, Thomas Square, Midtown, East Side, the Beach Institute, which is a very small one, Benjamin Van Clark neighborhood, Live Oak neighborhood, Dale Terrace / Olympus / Victory Square. There's really not any residential right there, but that is what the neighborhood is called. That's where Home Depot is.
Oh,
that's what that area is called. Victory Manor, East Hill, Dunwood, Hillcrest, Blackshear, Gordonston, Twickenham, Parkside, LaRose Park, Spring Hill, also like Daffin Heights. And then we're kind of moving, south towards Memorial. Sunset Park, Edgemere, Sackville, Magnolia Park, Forest Park, Blueberry Hill, South Garden, and the Memorial Health Campus.
Okay.
So it's a lot. I mean, that's, again, 20,000 voters, 36,000 people.
I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but as a 68-year Savanian, as you're naming those neighborhoods, just to be honest, I can probably close my eyes and picture 3/4 of them, but not all of them. And yeah. So
no, I would definitely say the one I was probably, or the ones I've been least familiar with, were the neighborhoods down on the east side of Skidaway above Bacon Park. And so that would be sort of Blueberry Hill, Magnolia Park. And I biked down there the other day, actually, to drop off some signs, which was extremely scary trying to cross Truman Parkway. And we need to figure that out. There's no way to cross Truman Parkway on a bike in a safe manner, and that's a concern.
Probably not legally either.
But I was like, how am I going to get there? So, but I ended up over in Blueberry Park, and it's gorgeous. This whole damn District 2, is really quite cool. It's just beautiful, and it has charm everywhere. It's just overflowing with charm. I mean, it's incredible. We don't have any sort of like large industrial waste ponds. We don't have any like horrible, sprawly pavement covered mall parking lots. It is dense and colorful and vivacious and unique, and it's an incredible district. Every part of it that I've been able to find.
So far, you've not seen any part of this district that you feel like I really don't know what to think about, or
no, definitely not. I would actually, all of the ways that I think about cities and I think about land and I think about all the things that I think about apply extremely well to this entire district.
And then you mentioned being on your bicycle. I mean, what's it been like campaigning in this particular time? What did you imagine you'd be doing campaigning, and what are you doing campaigning? Help me understand that.
Well, I thought I would be assembling lots of people into small rooms so we could all kind of like, shake hands and hug each other. So we're not doing that.
Nope.
I expected a lot of walking down the street and meeting people and again, sort of like, having I really do believe in handshakes a lot, for better or for worse. I actually put a lot of weight into whether a handshake is a good, strong handshake or not. And maybe that biases me a bit. Oh, well. So there's, I would say that the one thing that I am not doing that I wanted to do more of is assembling groups of people together to celebrate being together. And being able to have discussions and listening sessions and town halls and round circles and discuss a variety of topics. And that has been really unfortunate not to be able to do. But I have also at the same time, especially just riding my bike around the district, which is a perfect speed for a campaign. Riding my bike around the district, I have been able to meet with folks and chat with them, at a very safe distance. And I've been handing out signs on my little bike, and that's really helped me sort of ground the campaign a little bit. I mean, it's all kind of been very virtual, but the bike rides have at least grounded it that this is the district, these are the people, these are their voices.
So you literally are going up and down streets, and if people are on their front porch or if they're out gardening, it's an opportunity for conversation. One thing leads to another. Maybe they get a yard sign. They've got questions. You talk about the neighborhood. You talk about concerns they might have. That's just person by person by person.
By person. It is my goal to bike every street of District 2, which I did the calculation a couple weeks ago. It is both longer and shorter than I thought it was.
Would you have a number that might help?
I think it was like 200 miles or so.
Okay.
Which, if I did that at 5 miles an hour for 3 hours a day, it would take me about 14 days to do, or something like that. Which is like, what else? Got time to do it.
All right. So that's part of your campaign strategy. You're going to be in every neighborhood on your bicycle, and just seeing the neighborhood, feeling the neighborhood, meeting people, and listening, talking while you're on your bike. And that. It doesn't take the place of groups of people where there's interactive, generative discussion and that kind of thing. That's a whole nother way of seeing ideas develop and form. But certainly, this is a little bit different way and has its strengths as well. You know,
Yes, it does.
a little, maybe a little more open, a little more honest in this more quiet, informal way.
Hmm.
And plus, you're going to have really, strong legs.
Yeah,
This is
right.
not a bad thing.
I should just like lift weights and ride my bike and just get like beefy.
Cardio is going to be good and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, all that. Well, let's move on to platform. Unless there are other things you want to make sure we touch on before we move.
Well, I wanna be aware of our time. I mean, it's 6:47. I think if we go until maybe 7:15, 7:20, I don't have anywhere to be, but I do want to make sure we're respecting anybody's time that's watching this. So yeah, I'll talk about the platforms really quickly. I mean, I'm just going to touch on them real fast.
Good.
Don't blame me if I'm not getting into stuff in major detail because I already told you that I'm not. But I think it's important that people do know. So my platform, the way I've been thinking about it, is kind of a pyramid. It's a pyramid scheme. Actually, don't say that. Nix that I just said that. It's not a pyramid scheme. But it is a pyramid. And so the way I'm thinking about it is the base level are the concrete things that I want to focus on. The second level is about how I want to do that. And the third level is about all of them combined, what can they do for our community? And so on the basic level, what I'm focused on is transportation, community health, and resiliency. And what I see each of those as very quickly, transportation for me is about is maintaining our transit system that we've got. I'm currently on the board of Chatham Area Transit. It's a $26 million a year organization. It moves around 4 million people, we do around 4 million trips a year. It is an incredible public asset that we have been investing in for the last 40 years as taxpayers. And I think that's important for people to understand is that you own CAT and you should be demanding that it's working better. There is a tremendous amount of low-hanging fruit at Chatham Area Transit in terms of our route redesign, technology, marketing. That is all very attainable, but it needs the full backing of the county. It needs the full backing of every municipality in order to actually really shine the way that it could.
When I was growing up, the champion was Joe Murray Rivers.
Yeah. And we've got a goddamn like intermodal station named after Joe Murray Rivers. His golden shoes are in there. Joe Murray Rivers, I think that Joe Murray Rivers was the last strong transportation politician in this community. And since his time, I know he passed away in 2017. Since his time, I think we have not been maintaining critical thinking around transportation in city politics and in city leadership, and it damn well shows.
So transportation, CAT, that's fundamental for you. What else?
Yes. And Janine, if you're watching this, if you post your question on Facebook Live on the comments, then we will answer it. But let me just get through the what are we talking about? Policies? Yeah.
Transportation, community health.
Oh yeah. So community health covers a lot of things. Health is a very broad concept. So for me, that covers housing, access to affordable housing. That covers social services for our youth and for our kids. It covers our justice and correction system, which needs a tremendous amount of help. It also touches upon cultural and recreational resources. The county does a pretty damn good job of doing recreation, but we also need to think more about our cultural resources as well. We have a lot of work to do with our jails and our correction facilities. We have some amazing work happening in our juvenile system right now that we need to support and champion. We need to think clearly about affordable housing so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, but we also make sure that we are providing it. And yeah.
Okay. And then resilience. How do you think about that?
So I think about resilience about how do we bounce back? How do we bounce back after a bad emergency, after a bad pandemic, after a bad hurricane, a bad power outage? How do we bounce back as soon as we can? And so the way I think about resiliency is networks, it's redundancy, it's long-term planning, and it's thinking about emergencies in a variety of ways. This pandemic, I think, has really shown us the what happens when your counties and your communities, when your counties and your municipalities are not working together. What you get is a sort of, very distracting, sometimes deadly, a very distracting, incoherent set of directions from your local leadership. It should be there should be, I'm not saying one voice, many people can say it, but it should be a chorus of direction, especially in times like this. If everybody is saying something different, people are going to get confused, they're going to get worried, as they rightly should. It needs to be one single chorus that's telling people, here's what we need you to do. And I believe that there's a deeper reason why that hasn't been happening. And it goes to kind of it goes to cooperation with the county and its municipalities, which is kind of my second tier of things. So we've got transportation, community health, and resiliency. How do I plan on doing these? Through accessibility and cooperation. So cooperation for me is the big honcho with this county and with these municipalities, is they do not cooperate. They sometimes, I feel like they're doing things to just make the other one upset. And that is, when times are good and we're all rolling in tax money, it's okay to maybe not get along, because you can afford to not get along. But with the current financial situation that we're going to be in, we can no longer afford to not work together. We can really only afford to be as cooperative as all heck. And so that's that. Accessibility means that I'm there for you. You guys know who I am. Email, text, phone, calls, meetings. I'm just bringing enthusiasm, a much needed enthusiasm, to the county commission to get people to pay attention to what the county commission is doing. You pay taxes. It makes decisions about your life. We should all be involved. And if anything, I'm an extremely enthusiastic person about stuff I'm interested in.
You also, just to say it, are a storekeeper, which means that Monday through Saturday, is that right? You're closed on Sunday?
Yeah.
Monday through Saturday.
No. We're open 7 days a week, which means that you can come in and yell at me anytime you'd like, and I would be honored.
Yeah, which is
I would be honored.
You're extremely visible.
Yeah. Lisa, I'm just to answer question. Lisa, I did not start on the environmental question. I think we're going to get to the questions. We've got some questions from the audience. Should we start on those now?
Please. Now, right. You're able to see those. I'm not. So you have to kind of lead this.
All right, great. Well, I'm going to start with Lisa's question. Lisa Watson asked a question. She sent one in an email today, so we'll consider that the first one and kind of go down the board. Right. So Lisa's question was, I texted it to you. What was Lisa's question?
You did text it to me. Hang on, it's in here. What will you do to protect Chatham County from pollution and or from sea level rise? And be specific, please.
Be specific. All right. Pollution, sea level rise. All right. So pollution, Chatham County needs to get on board with the city and sign the 100% renewable energy or clean energy policy that the city actually recently signed at the last city council meeting. That's crucial. What that does is it sets into place. I called up the city's resilience office and I talked to them. I was like, so what does this policy actually do? It sounds like kind of fluffy, like we're just going to sign it and not do anything. But what I realized is that, and from talking to the folks at the city, is that by having the city be committed to a clean energy plan in a certain amount of time, that opens up the city's department to apply for grants to help us get there. They can't apply for these grants until our leadership has committed to being a clean energy city. And so I believe that the county should also commit to being a clean energy county and start conversion over to electrification. I'm all big on electrification. That's sort of like a core belief that I've got. We need to convert our entire fleet of vehicles at the county over to electric vehicles, and make that investment now, or figure out, sort of what is the timeline for making that investment. So for pollution, my main thing with pollution is electrification. And so in any way that we can, we need to consider how we can electrify our fleet, electrify our buildings, minimize energy usage as much as possible. And there's just some, there's just some low-hanging fruit there, that with the purchasing power that the county has, because we're buying maybe like 20, 30 trucks or cars at a time, we can save money by doing it that way. I've got some experience working on electrification at CAT, because we're now, any bus that we buy at CAT moving forwards will be electric. And so what's been really interesting is it's buying the electric buses is fairly straightforward, but putting in the infrastructure and working with Georgia Power to make sure that we've got enough energy at the CAT depot to charge the buses is much more complicated. And so one quick thing, I thought this was kind of interesting. One bus to charge overnight consumes the energy that 7 households use in a week. And so when we've got 50 buses in a garage, that's what? 350 houses energy consumption for a week being pumped into Chatham Area Transit garage in one night to charge all those buses, which is, it's nuts. It's a lot of, there's a lot of thinking around there.
Well,
yeah?
Is that efficient?
It is. No, it is much more efficient. It is much more efficient. And I can kind of get into that more. If you want to ask me why electrification is more efficient, bug me later. But to get to the other part about pollution, or about sea level rise, so that one's a little bit more complex, because we can't really do anything to minimize sea level rise. Our actions would just be, like that. We can try to reduce less energy, our energy consumption, to try to reduce sea level rise. But sea level is coming up, and we've got to prepare for that. So what that means is massive investments into stormwater engineering, and making sure that our flood infrastructure is top notch. That for me speaks directly into how do we use SPLOST to maintain for the next 200 years this community's resiliency to floodwaters coming up. I was also involved with a really cool project between Georgia Tech and the Creative Coast and Chatham Emergency Management here, where we put ultrasonic sensors connected through a wireless network on bridges throughout Chatham County, so that when the water rises, we can see collectively where the water is rising, and if water hit important parts of the bridge. When water hits underneath the bottom of the bridge, that's bad. That means you got to go out, you got to look, you got to test, you got to get a civil engineer out there. It takes a lot of time to reopen Chatham County, mainly because they have to check every bridge. If we were to use these sensors, which are really fairly inexpensive, then we can say, okay, well, we know that none of these bridges were harmed. This one was. Boom. We can, with the information, we can make a better decision about it. There's also a lot that I'm looking at in terms of flood risk and flood insurance around and related to seawater rise. That's something that I'm trying to learn a little bit more, and I would say that I'm not totally sure how that works.
Mm-hmm. Well, to your point, flood insurance is going to be important, obviously, to homeowners, and
yes.
You would be somebody that the more you can learn about that and weigh in on that on behalf of homeowners, the better. So I hear you there. I think it's apparent to everybody that you are a transportation nerd.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. I mean, you love thinking about it and talking about it and reading about it and really understanding it. So that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Do you have other specific questions that people have sent in?
Yeah, so Janine had 2 questions. I'll start with the first one. Why do you see public transit as a concern for the city, and why did you want to be on the board of CAT? So I guess we'll start with the second part of that question, why I wanted to be on the board of CAT. I cannot stress enough the importance of thinking about transit. You can't think about transit clearly until you first understand that it takes time to move through space. That's a very basic idea, but it takes time to move through space. The further away something is, the longer it's going to take to get there. And all of the resources that we go to every day, when you go to work, you go to the school, you go to a cafe, you go to the theater, you go to a doctor, you go to your family, are in space, and they take time to get there. And so what that means is that we've got limited amounts of time. Everybody's time is really important, whether you are on the lowest end of the social economic spectrum or the richest person in the world, your time is valuable because it's your time, and I'm not going to make any assumptions that anybody's time is more or less valuable. So making sure that we can get people efficiently to all of these resources is critical, which means that transportation affects housing affordability, it affects access to medical care, it affects workforce development, it affects what after-school programs your kid can get to, it affects literally every aspect of how our cities life, because it brings access to things that you didn't have access to before. And so I see a lot of concerns and challenges in Savannah, and I don't see transportation being brought up as a solution or a challenge. And that's when I realized that is we need to change that, because transportation is such a big impact on everything. We need somebody who's advocating for it. So the other part of the question is, why do you see public transit as a concern for the city? We have not been maintaining it well. The routes that we have now were set into place 40 years ago, and they've grown like coral, and they've sort of been moved around, but they've never been cleaned up. So we've got this sort of slow growth transit system that just simply needs to be picked up, shaken out, and put back into place. And unless we have the political will to do so, we'll never be able to do that. And I think we were on the cusp of doing that in the summer of 2019 with our Let's Go campaign. Because we did not do that, I believe we're wasting, literally millions of hours of Chatham County residents' time on bus routes that are not as efficient as they could be. While still, we could get them to everywhere that they are getting to right now. So I just know from firsthand that public transit has not been given the maintenance nor the care from our leadership as it should have.
And just to clarify, when you use the word city in this in your answer, your entire district, your county commission district, I'm asking, is that entire district within the city of Savannah?
It is entirely within the city of Savannah, yes.
What are the implications there?
Well, there's actually a lot. So that means that, well, you reminded me of something else that I feel I need to talk about. But what it means is that I cannot be part of a decision around zoning, land use, public safety here in Savannah, noise ordinances, sidewalks, a lot of decisions that affect people in District 2 in their daily lives are made by the city of Savannah, and the county has, very little to do with how those decisions are made. What that does mean, though, is that I can, as an advocate for citizens of District 2, be part of the voice that is speaking for them. So another listener who is able to, attend meetings and make my, position on certain things known, at MPC meetings that I may not be able to decide, but I can speak about them in an intelligent way that tries to gather as many of the voices from the community as possible.
Do you have other questions that people have sent in?
Yeah, I do. So Janine had another question. With such a varied district, what are some concerns that the various neighborhoods share? Are there concerns that you see in conflict? And yes, I think that's a really exciting part about District 2, is that there are a lot of variations to the different neighborhoods, but they're all not so different. Again, it's not like we have an open pit mine and a nuclear power plant and a residential area. It's all pretty much residential with pockets of really rich commercial spaces throughout them. There's a lot of concern from neighborhoods kind of centering around Live Oak and Baldwin Park and Midtown about rampant, I would say, commercialization or gentrification of their neighborhoods, which is some people in Thomas Square, some residents, we've really sort of like embraced this mixture of commercial right next to residential. And there are some neighborhoods that definitely don't want that in their neighborhood. And that's really, that's something that we got to respect and make sure that we, figure out ways to let everybody be successful, but respect the desire for folks to stay in their place as long as possible. That would sort of So let me see. So yeah, so that's one concern I would say. That's very. Other than that, there's probably I could go into that more, and Janine, if you want me to, I'll try to answer that more in an email or on a phone call. But I would say, there's a lot of cohesion around what folks in District 2 talk to me about. From the things I'm hearing, from the sidewalk conversations I've had, from the endless meetings I've had throughout the district. We're all kind of committed to having resources around us, nice walkable streets, feeling safe, having access to good food, and affordable housing. And those are all things that can be addressed throughout the district. To kind of add on to that, though, Moncello had a question. I don't know if you wanted to say something, but I could sort of jump into Moncello's question real quick.
You mentioned public safety. What's the kind of commission's role in public safety in Savannah, Chatham?
So it's it's the reactive side, I would say. Chatham County has a police force, but it's not in the city of Savannah. So the District 2 is policed by the city of Savannah's police department. If you commit a crime and you go to jail, you are now under the auspices of the county, specifically the sheriff. So it's really everything from the arrest on. So I would say that the county does a lot of work and spends a lot of time thinking about, how you spend your time after you've been arrested until you exit that situation. And also, especially in the juvenile system, really just some tremendous work around keeping kids and our youth from entering the system at all. And there's some incredible people from the Deep Center to Lisa Colbert, Judge Burke, who are doing some really great work around, making sure that our youth never enter that system. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Great, I appreciate it. And then you said Moncello has a question?
Yeah, so Moncello's question was, what ideas do you have to grow businesses in District 2, specifically in the Waters Corridor? Easy stuff. The biggest one, and I wrote a column about this in the Savannah Morning News, is we need to remove parking minimums. If I wanted to build a cafe, or if you, Tom, wanted to start a little breakfast nook on Waters Avenue, you would have to build twice as much parking as the square footage of your cafe, which means that you probably wouldn't be able to, because you would either have to purchase a hell of a lot more land and then develop it into a parking lot, or you just might not be able to find that land to create the parking lot on. Study after study after study after study has shown that dense walkable neighborhoods with commercial spaces that don't have parking are where people want to spend their time. And where parking goes, because that's a great question, people are going to drive there, it gets filtered out into the communities. And that is that's a tough relationship to try to broach. Nobody wants to not be able to park in their neighborhoods, but at the same time, we really want these wonderful, walkable, vibrant business districts, and that is the best way to do it. It's proven time and time and time and time again, and I could send anybody who's asking way too many articles about this, but we need to reduce our parking minimums for the TC district, the traditional commercial -2 and traditional commercial -1 districts along Waters Avenue corridor, and able to make it possible for small business owners. That's the key, for small business owners to open a variety of different types of businesses.
And then, Clinton, I just want to follow up. In my experience, you do your homework, you read extensively, and I would imagine that almost any question someone would ask you, you may not be able to respond immediately, but in terms of being able to say, let me get back to you, my is you would read and I would get 3 or 4 links from you and say, here's 3 or 4 things to read and think about, because we've disagreed on a variety of things over the years. And instead of argue about them, my experience of you is you send me information and I try to read it.
Try to bring you to the dark side of the policy.
Yeah, I try to read it, and then we get to actually have a conversation about it instead of just sort of be kind of stuck in our own moment with it. And that's a great offer to make to any constituent. I mean,
Well, I think it, like, I sleep pretty soundly at night after making decisions, and I've made a bunch of decisions that folks have been really excited by or very upset with. But at the end of the day, it's like and this is a lot of stuff that I've learned from being on all these boards, is that I think about an idea, I think about a decision, I research it, I talk to people about it, I make that decision, and then I stand by it. And I'll tell you why I have. I'll tell you exactly why I've gone ahead and made this decision. And I mean, I've had to make a whole bunch of decisions, a whole bunch at CAT, a whole bunch at the Thomas Square Neighborhood Association, and every decision I've made, especially the really tough decisions, I've done a tremendous amount of work to try to figure out what is the best way forwards. What I haven't done is backed away from having to make a decision because it was going to be tough. And I think as we move forwards, especially after, as we kind of enter this new economic reality, there are going to be some tough decisions to be made. And if we have leadership that backs away from them or doesn't lean into the toughness of trying to figure this out, we're screwed. Like, we need folks that are going to lean in, do the work, make some decisions that not everybody's going to be happy with, because it needs to be done.
Where we are. That might be, unless you've got other specific questions, that might be a pretty good stopping point, because we're at 7:13 and we need to make sure Brittany has some time to recap. And then we also need to spend a minute just sort of reminding people what we were trying to do here tonight. And again, remind people if they want to help with your campaign, how they can help with your campaign. Does it seem like a pretty good stop?
That does. I think there are some questions on here. I will answer those in the comments. And if you have any other questions, ask them, and I'll be sure to get back to you on that. I'm not bad at getting back to folks.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think let's give Brittany a chance to maybe finish up and then show us what she's been working on. And what else do we need to cover?
I wanted maybe for you to talk just a little bit about different ways people, if they choose to, can help with your campaign.
Yes. So welcome to the wonderful world of virtual campaigns. It is somehow more obnoxious and a lot easier than campaigns in the past. You've probably seen me pop up on Facebook either through a paid promotional ad or something that somebody has shared. Share those, please. Facebook, for better or for worse, and mainly for worse, has become our new public street. It's where we're all kind of hanging out. It's a big cafe. And so by sharing an article, that's the equivalent of you telling your neighbor or somebody at a cafe that you would be talking to but can't now, telling them about this campaign. And I think, the way I've been thinking about it is that you may not you can support me, or you can support the ideas that I represent. And I've tried to be very clear about what those are, about what it is. And so, it is really weird doing a campaign, which is basically all about telling you guys how great I am all the time. And that is wearing on me. But what I do really like are the ideas that I have. And so I think if you could, maybe looking at it that way for anybody that really wants to support the campaign, is that I am me, but I am also the ideas that I have and the ideas I want to carry out. So I would say...
Can I stop there just for a second?
Yeah.
One idea you mentioned to me that I thought was really interesting is you recently helped an organization in town, I think called the Hungry Club.
Yes.
And this is a long-standing organization, civic organization. Folks were not particularly technologically modern. You recently helped them put on their meeting using, I think, this format.
Yes.
They had a successful meeting, maybe
very successful.
More people than in other style meetings. And you had mentioned that if there were neighborhood associations in your district that wanted to try to do virtual neighborhood association meetings, you could offer technical assistance and would be willing to do that. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would start by saying that I successfully got my dad to log on to Zoom and do a Zoom meeting with the rest of our family. So if I can get my dad on Zoom, I can literally get anybody on this planet logged onto Zoom. Okay. I don't care who you are. I don't care what technology you have. You and I, we're getting on Zoom, whoever you are. So yeah, and I would, if anybody needs help, neighborhood associations, nonprofit organizations, friends, let me know. I'm happy to help.
I'm good at that. one other question you can answer if you want to or not. How much money are you trying to raise for this campaign? I mean, how are you thinking about this?
Yeah, so we're looking to raise about 15 grand, which covers 2 mailers, covers a bunch of Facebook ads, covers about 350 signs for yards, and then bookkeeping to make sure we're doing this all legally, and paying Brittany as well, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So 15 grand is kind of what we're aiming at now. We're actually about halfway there, which is really encouraging. But I would say that if anybody's interested in making a contribution, it is very helpful. None of this is happening. I'm putting a lot of time into this, but none of this is really happening for free. And so if you like some of the ideas that I'm saying, and you like, if you're interested in seeing some improvements made in transit, community health, and resiliency, at least in this county, consider making a financial contribution. I know these are really tough times, so it's kind of weird to be asking for contributions, but I'm hoping that I can help get us out of this in a way that is a little bit more benevolent than I think, what we may end up going through.
Fair enough. All right. Brittany, are you ready to kind of walk us back through?
Yes, I am. I know the details are really small to see from right here, so I'm going to sort of do my best to point through Clinton's talking points. We started off hearing a little bit about Clinton's backstory, how he grew up in Alaska, and how working on a commercial fishing boat for 11 years taught him the skills like cooperation, how to be curious about things, about the safety, really just the kind of get her done attitude. He decided to move to Savannah to go to SCAD, and described living in the SCAD bubble for the first couple of years, but through community involvement and several board positions, started to really discover Savannah and to discover that he could be helpful to Savannah and that Savannah could conversely be very helpful to him. Started Starlandia Art Supply in 2015 in the Starland District, the cheapest reused, repurposed art supplies in the country. I learned tonight. I did not know that before tonight. And he talked about a couple of different boards that he sat on. Worked with the Creative Coast, with Thomas Square Neighborhood Association, as well as with Chatham Area Transit. So from the sort of small and very local neighborhood, provincial, to CAT, which is, Clint, just say a $26 million a year budget. So a budget with a whole lot of zeros in it. So we got to talk about some of the campaign issues that are most important to Clinton, and those would be resilience. How do we bounce back after hurricanes and floods? How are we utilizing our networks? How are we thinking about long-term planning and having a consistent message to get out to the public so that they're hearing uniform, transparent, and clear messaging from elected officials? He also talked about community health, which touches on, affordable housing, juvenile justice reform, and basically just making sure that we're doing everything that we can to prevent youth from ever entering the system. The other big issue we spent so much time talking about was on transportation, which is a huge, anybody that knows Clinton knows that is his, arguably almost his number one issue that he is the most knowledgeable about. And it's true. It takes time to move through space and to come up with a system that can be most efficient and maximally effective to everybody. This has been a huge learning opportunity for him to sharpen his skills and to see what pieces need to go together. And as we moved into the question and answer section, somebody asked, why is this so important to you? Why is transportation such a big issue? And it's because it affects everything from affordable housing, workforce development, to what resources are available in after-school programs. We moved through another question that was about what would you do about air pollution and the rising sea levels. The air pollution, Clinton says to move to electrifying everything is the solution he proposes. And we also need to get county and city on board with a clean energy, with a commitment to a clean energy plan, so that we can then access grant monies that will help us implement that plan. I think the last question, one of the last questions we touched on was what Clinton would do to grow small businesses. And time again, it's minimizing the parking and making streets that are accessible and safe where people can go walk around is what we hear and what studies show over and over and over again that will lead to business growth in the area. So that was just a very short summary of some of the key things we talked about. I'm going to clean up this image, add a little to it, do a little editing, and I'm going to be posting this on my personal social media platforms, my Inky Brittany Facebook page and my Inky Brittany Instagram account. I'll share them with Clinton. Hope you'll post them too. And thank you for letting me be the scribe to capture tonight's spirit of tonight's conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Clayford County.
Great.
I can't wait to see this all. It
So,
looks
Clint,
amazing.
We've just got a minute. I'll summarize. First, I want to say thank you for being willing to run, because these are sharp elbow times in politics, and I think being willing to run and willing to serve is truly a public service. So no matter what happens, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. And then two, although there's a joke in Savannah about you're not a Savannian unless you were born here, I don't think that's necessarily quite as true as it used to be. And your Savannah chops are showing in a wonderful way, and they'll only continue to show in that way. Again, no matter what happens, but you're going to win. Three, I do want to say to people that if you live in one of the neighborhoods that Clinton mentioned, and you're interested in knowing more about him or knowing more about the campaign, please reach out. Go by the store, Starlandia. It's right next to Popeye's Fried Chicken on Bull at 40th, right across from the Say Hey.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Say Hey Lounge, so drop by and see him. And then strong Facebook presence as well. And then three, if you feel like you want to send in $25 or $50, I'm guessing that your fundraising's been fairly small dollar, large numbers of people. Check can come to you where and made out how?
Yeah, so this was a question somebody had. If you are interested in making a contribution, I love you. You can send a check to 2438 Bull Street, Savannah, Georgia 31401. I would make the check out to Friends of Clinton Edminster. You can also visit clintonfordcounty.com. It's the link that is, down there on the title of this page. I also posted that in the comments. On the website, you can navigate to making a contribution through ActBlue. It's very secure. It gets all of your information that we need. And I mean, if you have any questions with any of those, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email.
Great. All right. Well, I guess it's over and out time. Is that right?
It's over and out time. Thank you,
Brittany. The good news is you mentioned one of your key points was show up on time. So we're going to end on time. That's also important, I think. We're in 6 minutes early, which I think, not so shabby.
Very well done, I think.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Over and out.
Y'all have a great night.
Good.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.